Have you ever noticed this? The more available you are, the less valued you become. The more consistent you try to be, the more invisible you feel. You answer fast. You show up every time. You make yourself easy to understand. And slowly, without anyone saying it, you become predictable. And predictable people don't get chased. They get categorized. Today, we're not talking about manipulation. We're not talking about playing games. We're talking about something far more powerful. The quiet social advantage of being slightly unpredictable. Not chaotic, not unreliable, just not fully mapped. The human brain craves novelty. The human nervous system is wired for patterns. But here's the paradox. We crave stability, yet we are stimulated by uncertainty. When someone knows exactly how you'll respond, your emotional impact drops. No mystery, no anticipation, no cognitive tension, and attraction, socially, romantically, professionally, requires tension. If people can forecast you with 100% accuracy, their brain stops investing energy in you. But when you introduce slight unpredictability, their attention heightens, not because you're dramatic, but because you're not fully solved. Predictability signals psychological availability when you are always the first to text, the fastest to respond, the one who keeps conversations alive, the one who always adjusts. You communicate something unconsciously. I am available on demand. Availability feels kind, but over-availability feels guaranteed, and guaranteed things are rarely respected. Slight unpredictability shifts the internal dynamic. Instead of, they'll always be there, it becomes, I'm not entirely sure. That uncertainty increases perceived value, not through fear, through awareness. Emotional tension creates presence. Presence is not about volume, it's about impact. Some people walk into a room and everyone adjusts. Why? Because they don't overshare. They don't overreact. They don't rush to fill silence. They leave space. Silence is social power. When you don't instantly react, people pay closer attention. When you don't immediately clarify, people lean in. When your response timing shifts slightly, the emotional rhythm changes, and rhythm controls attention. Slight unpredictability is not equals to instability. Let's be clear, we're not talking about ghosting. We're not talking about emotional games. We're not talking about manipulation. We're talking about calibrated restraint. The difference is intention. Instability creates anxiety, but grounded unpredictability creates intrigue. For example, you don't always explain your decisions. You don't immediately defend yourself. You don't fill every silence. You don't always say yes. You move based on your internal state, not external pressure. That consistency to yourself creates unpredictability to others, and that's powerful. When people can't fully read you, they invest more. The brain dislikes incomplete information. When something feels unfinished, it stays open in memory. Psychologists call this the open loop effect. If someone feels like they fully understand you, their mind closes the file. But if they feel there's more beneath the surface, their mind keeps returning. Why didn't they respond the way I expected? Why didn't they react? Why do they seem calm? You haven't done anything dramatic. You've simply stopped being obvious, and that creates cognitive pull. Social dynamics shift when you stop over-explaining. Over-explaining is usually fear-driven. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being disliked. Fear of losing connection. So we clarify everything. We justify. We soften. We reassure. And slowly we reduce our weight. But slightly unpredictable people do something different. They say what they mean. They let it stand. They tolerate the silence after. That silence recalibrates power, because now the other person has to process you, instead of you processing them. Controlled absence increases value. Think about music. If every note played continuously, it would just be noise. The pause between notes creates beauty. In the same way, constant presence reduces impact. Slight absence increases it. You don't always need to be available. You don't always need to respond instantly. You don't always need to initiate. When your attention is not automatic, it becomes intentional. And intentional attention feels rare. Rare feels valuable. Emotional self-control is the core. The real advantage of being slightly unpredictable is not social, it's internal. When you stop reacting instantly, you gain control over your nervous system. When you don't rush to fix tension, you build emotional tolerance. When you allow others to sit in uncertainty, you stop managing their emotions. And that changes everything. Because now, you are not chasing reactions. You are not chasing reassurance. You are not chasing validation. You are steady. And steady people feel powerful. The subtle shift that changes everything. Here's what slight unpredictability actually looks like. You take time before replying, not strategically, but naturally. You say no without long explanations. You don't argue every misunderstanding. You don't react to every provocation. You don't reward inconsistent behavior with instant warmth. You remain kind, but not easily predictable. You remain open, but not fully accessible on demand. You remain grounded, but not controllable. And that difference reshapes how people treat you. People respect what they can't control. Control reduces curiosity. When someone feels in control of your attention, your reactions, your availability, they relax, but not in a good way. They stop trying. When they are slightly unsure, they lean forward, they adjust, they pay attention. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to intimidate. You don't need to withdraw affection. You simply stop making yourself easy to manage. And socially, that changes your position. Here's the truth. Most people avoid unpredictability because they're afraid of loss. If I don't respond fast, they'll leave. If I don't reassure them, they'll think I don't care. If I don't keep the energy high, I'll be replaced. But ask yourself, if someone only stays because you're predictable, is that connection secure or conditional? The right people don't need constant access. They respect rhythm, they respect boundaries, they respect self-possession. And if someone disappears because you stopped overextending, you didn't lose stability, you revealed it. The psychological advantage. Being slightly unpredictable does three things. It increases perceived value, it heightens attention, it shifts emotional power, not through aggression, through restraint. And restraint is rare. In a world of instant replies, instant opinions, instant exposure, calm unpredictability feels magnetic because it signals depth, and depth feels powerful. The balance. The goal is not to confuse people, the goal is to be internally guided. When you respond based on alignment, not anxiety, your behavior becomes less predictable because it's not reactive, it's intentional. And intentional people don't feel chaotic, they feel centered. That centered unpredictability creates respect. So here's the shift. Stop trying to be perfectly consistent in ways that drain you. Stop being available to prove value. Stop over-communicating to secure connection. Instead, pause, choose, respond, don't react. Be warm but not automatic. Be kind but not predictable. Be present but not constant. That's the social advantage. You don't need to be extreme, just slightly unpredictable. And watch how differently the world begins to lean toward you.